Good afternoon, class. So today is 27th of February, and we will have to cover the current affairs of today. The first news is related to the India-China agreed to establish a new hotline. I think all of you have learned that now the de-escalation have started at the border. There are a lot of things that are currently going on. There have been de-escalation at major friction points. The corporation trust building, capacity building, and also giving prior information to any form of type of escalation of the defense on the either side of the LAC needed to be communicated to the other party. These are some of the things that have come forward. Now, we had a deal in Moscow in which we had meeting with the Chinese counterpart that we need a type of a de-escalation on all parts. But then we have seen the Chinese has been doing this all other things, raking up the issues on the border. Mr. Jaishankar still to date have accused China by the similar prospect that when we asked them about what is the objectivity that you basically raked up the defense forces at the border. There was no explanation till date that have come up from the Chinese side, and this have actually created a problem for the Indian bureaucracy in understanding that what was the objectivity to bring in such low phase in the India-China relationship. Everything was going smooth, and in the time of COVID, why China was doing it. Now they are disengaging. Now there is also backpedaling that is currently going on with respect to the relation in the India and China. In the midst of it, India and China have established a hotline. Now this hotline is an emergency communication which will be directly from one place to another so that you can directly communicate on any form of information that you want to give or any form of communication that you want to have with the other counterpart. So that is how the things are currently going on. Now, Chinese government and the Indian government perception with respect to the LACs are completely different. China have asked Indian government to basically uh, isolate the bilateral relations between the two countries from the border issue. India have maintained that border issue is one of the major that is in centrity of everything that is going on with China. So how can we uh, just isolate the border issue with all the issues? This is not going to happen, and it is not the way forward. If the border issue is resolved, then only the relation between the two countries would be normalized. So these are some of the things that are currently going on. With respect to the mutual misgivings that China have done, India have said to them that the perception of the LAC, the talks on the LAC, and the way in which they should be moving forward are completely different in each other country's perception. They are needed to be talked on a common ground. The grounds which are contentious, contentious, and which are lost troublesome, they should be resolved first, and later on the other parts or the other things could be resolved, and we can talk about the things that we can basically agree to disagree upon, and lot of things could be discussed regarding the common point, the service point, the border that is needed to be demarcated. So these are some of the things that India and China should be talking about. But although this is a timely communication type of a hotline that has been offered, that is completely true. Now, further moving on, the next news is related to the open minds. Now, this is a circular that the government have issued in which the government have asked the online faculties who are basically talking with the international faculties and with the academia of India that if there is any form of online webinar or online communication that they want to collaborate with, then there are certain topics that are needed not to be discussed. For example, Kashmir is a topic, Northeast is the topic, and Jammu Kashmir is the topic. Apart from that, there are other notifications which have asked them to basically officially take permission and when they want to collaborate. Now, why the government have banned it, this is not mentioned in this particular article. Let me tell you. The online conferences, seminars, and the training sessions were being charged by some of the people, some of the professors who were working in the private universities. They were asking for certain type of money from the students directly into their bank account, and therefore to put a restriction on this particular part, they have proposed this particular thing that if there is official conference by any other university, they should be taking permission because there were a lot of frauds that are being committed, and to save the people from them, the government have roped in, but the academia have basically objected on the point of uh, inflection that when they want to collaborate in the time of the COVID, the safest way to collaborate is through online media. Government have also issued three or four directions that they need to follow. The first direction was that there should be prior official involvement. The second is you should not discuss topic that threatens the security of the state, that is Northeast Jammu Kashmir or any of the internal matter. Maybe we can discuss on the farm bills and all other issues. The last one is with respect to the tools and channels that are propagated by the foreign countries. For example, when we talk about some data that is being exchanged about the India's internal policy or the India's what India is trying to do, they can be exchanged with and can be basically used against India in the foreign flora. So these are some of the things that they have objected, but now the government have taken back. The online attendance of the students, although it have increased, the circular that was withdrawn by the opposition of the academia, because they have said if there is any form of sustainable or substantial research that they want to do, it can only happen under the ambit. Right now, as the COVID is just around the corner and the new strains are still emerging, so the only thing that which they can collaborate with the international community of scientists is through online media. The flights are booked. Sorry, flights are currently locked. Not all states have opened, all the countries have opened their airspaces. So there is still a lot of problem that is still in the communication, and therefore research collaboration could not be going further. So I hope this is clear. The next one is the colonial relic. Now, what is this a colonial relic? Why it is called so? Just please understand, if you have read history correctly, I have told you section 124A was the section that was introduced by the government during the Swadeshi movement. What was the objective of section 124A? To basically charge any person with sedition. Sedition generally involves that if you are acting against the particular or doing something conspiracy against the state. Now this was included in the Swadeshi movement, section 124A of the IPC, under which if there is a threat to the public order, incitement to the violence, or any form of thing that is done by a particular individual against the security of the state, that person could be picked up by the police and could be put in jail. Right now, we are still discussing this particular section that is a colonial legacy, and we have not done away with it. Now, Disha Ravi was the activist who was there. She has been accused of basically launching the toolkit with respect to the farmer protest, that what the other countries should do, how opinion should be formed against the government, and what are the things that are needed to be done. Now, the government have picked up Disha Ravi in this particular case and accused that she has been acted against the state on international platform by engaging with some Khalistani people. Of course, she should not do it. The case that was presented by the police, that was the claim that she was basically threatening the people to engage in any form of violence. This case was heard by the court. The court have taken an objectivity, or the court have taken a position with respect to the upholding of the liberty of the people and with respect to the upholding of the rights of the people. So court have said directly that whatever outlandish claims that the police have made, a dispassionate scrutiny should always be done for the liberty of the people. You may be very passionate about protecting the state against any threat, that is the outside threat or the internal threat. But when we will read about this particular issue or any person whose liberty has been crushed by state in any form or another, then we will have a very dispassionate scrutiny. No matter how passionate you are basically regarding the protection of the country, but we will have a dispassionate scrutiny whether this particular person rights are being upheld or not. Now, in this case, the High Court have provided a bail, although she have been intimidated by the police and put in jail. Now, there are such examples that are needed to be put forward, and I think the government should basically provide necessary liberty to the citizens of the country also to have a decent note. But generally, all the governments, when they are in power, they try to crush the opinion that does not suit them, because whenever there is a counter argument, maybe they will not be able to crush all the opinions, but there will be certain people whom they will be able to crush in a certain way. Now, all the people are ready to exercise their freedom in speech, and therefore they are the vociferous supporters of freedom. This is what the High Court have said, and in no way we are going to support any person who have been accused in any of the cases by the charges that you have put up, if there is no substantial or iota of evidence that is currently available that that person is directly involved in inciting any kind of violence against any number of people, whether it threatens the security of the state or whether it threatens the internal stability of the state. If you are not able to justify it fair and square, we will give the person the right to bail. And already we have talked about this, that right to bail is we all have a right to bail. but liberty to jail. So this is what the Supreme Court usually observe or usually have done in the many years. The next one is the Biden touch to sober yet substantive ties. So this revolves around how Mr. Biden would take a step with respect to the situation that is currently happening in the world. So already we have talked about multiple times what is the policy of Biden toward India, what is the policy of Biden toward the Central Asia, the policy toward China, the policy toward Russia. Now, whatever Mr. Trump's policy was, Trump was very friendly towards Russia. Biden is harsh toward Russia. Trump is very friendly toward Israel. Biden will uphold the freedom and the human rights in the case of Israel and in the case of Saudi Arabia. We have recently seen Mr. Biden government have basically allowed in the human rights report that was presented to the senators that Jamal Khashoggi, who was killed in the Turkey's embassy, was basically being ordered by whom? Being ordered by the Mohammed bin Salman. However, Mr. Trump have said that there is no accusation that is currently on Mohammed bin Salman, but right now the United States of America have let go of the report, or whatever the report investigation that they have found will be made open to the public, and it will be known that who was the leading conspirator behind the murder of the Khashoggi. That was the reporter who was the reporter, and he was murdered in the Turkey's embassy. Now, there are two or three things with respect to the Central Asia. They want to go ahead with the Iran deal. So they want to support the Iran deal. They want to go ahead with the climate change, go ahead with the United Nations Human Rights Commission. They have criticized the United Nations Human Rights Commission in treating Israel in unfavorably with respect to the manners that it should not be taken up with. Although there is the issue of Palestine, and United Nations Human Rights Council has always been passionate, you can say, or always have a soft corner toward the Palestinian people who have been basically put into the refuge camps, and the two territories where they are currently located. One is the West Bank, and the second one is the Gaza Strip. So these you should remember. Now, apart from that, when we talk about China, US does not see China as a threat, does not see China as a enemy. It sees China as a competitor. Now, in the world, I have already told you there are three kind of countries which are dominated by three C's. This is how the relations are generally existing. There is cooperation, that is between India and Bhutan. There is competition, that is between India and China. And there is conflict, that is between India and Pakistan. So these three ties basically work in the world, and they generally define that what kind of relationship you want to see with another country. Now, when Mr. Trump was there, he saw China as a conflict country, and Mr. Biden have changed that philosophy, that we see this particular as a competitor country. So that is the policy that they had with China. Mr. Biden is not going to push hard on the Chinese authorities to maintain all the things as Mr. Trump was doing, but then again there will be certain areas that he will be pushing into, certain protection of the domestic industry, certain protection of taxing higher on the Chinese output that is coming out from China to USA. So they will be debating about them. Now, the next one is with respect to India, how the policy would be. There is nothing, no substantial change that is going to happen with the India policy. We will be part of the Quad. The Quad will expand. We will be part of the larger part of the South Asia policy. We will be part of Malabar. But certainly the upholding of the human rights and the freedom of the choices with respect to journalism and the human rights activists. There are various organizations that the Indian government have blocked, or their finances have been blocked in the last, I think, few months. For example, Amnesty International is one of them. Then we have Bill and Kate Melinda Foundation, who are basically not allowed to earn any money in India. Now, Biden will be putting human rights at the center of the foreign policy, which Mr. Trump was not eager to do. So therefore, they will be increasing pressure on the violation of the human rights in Jammu and Kashmir. Whether the people of the Jammu and Kashmir are able to exercise the free speech, whether the medium is available to them. Some of the people also have various speculation with respect to Jammu and Kashmir that as Mr. Biden have come up, there was increasing pressure on the Indian government to basically let go of the internet shutdown that they have imposed in the valley, because Mr. Biden will definitely break it up into certain meetings. And as it could happen, the Indian government have already compiled itself or already cooperated with respect to the order that go directly with respect to the upholding of the human rights. With respect to the United Nations Security Council, India is now a member, so India will also have to work with the neighboring countries in the Myanmar as in case there is a coup that was conducted by the army over there. So what India's position would be, that will also be critical because USA have already said to the army that you should maintain and restore the democratic government elected by the people at the helm of the affairs, which is needed to be provided for the better administration, freedom of speech, freedom of people, and upholding of the human rights. These are the three major agendas of the US policy. With respect to the Sri Lanka, there will also be a human right violation that will be moved in United Nations Security Council for the 2009 operation that were actually conducted. So Sri Lanka have committed grievous, or you can say grievous human rights violation over the year in various aspects when the civil war was continuing over them. If you get a chance, please read about Sri Lanka civil war. What happened in Sri Lanka civil war? What were the two or three main parties that were involved? What was Rajiv Gandhi policy? And how the Tamilian people were basically the direct party to the Sri Lanka's civil war. So you should remember all these facts. Read about what happened in Sri Lanka. Okay. The next one is the Russia. So they see Russia as a conflict country. Now we are going to have S-400 missile system. So Katsa although that was provided at the time of the Trump administration, but the people or the secretary that were over there, they have kept mum on this particular part when Mr. Trump was there. Now as Mr. Biden is there, one thing that is needed to be reminded to us is Mr. Biden, the House that currently passed had majority of Mr. Biden's party, that is the Democratic bill that was passed in the House. Now, it will be highly unusual for Mr. Biden to basically grant us a favor against CATSA. But I have already told you, India right now is that wife of America. America had many wives. For example, South Korea is one of their wives, Japan is one of their wives, Australia is one of their wives, and India is another wife. But the one wife that is very dominating on America is India. And sooner or later, India will be able to find its way. So I think that is also going to happen. Then there is the issue of Afghanistan, in which India has been basically asked by Mr. Trump to play a active and a vital role, but India have stayed away. Hopefully so, because they have sensed that there may be a change in the next government and Democrats will not like any interference with respect to the deal that is going to that was brokered by Mr. Trump in the state of Qatar, in which he was basically focusing on exiting all the troops from the state of Afghanistan, giving it back to the government to ensuring the peace and also the democratically elected republic. But as the new administration have come up, they have said that they will review the Afghan deal or Afghan and Taliban deal. So Taliban is also right now currently on a back foot because Mr. Biden have said that they will not threaten the security of the Afghani people and prop up any form of terrorism activities or give a room to the terrorism activity to again prop up, which could pose direct or indirect threat to the American sovereignty and the neighbors and the friendly nations that are situated in the neighborhood. Probably he was talking about Saudi Arabia and Israel. So that is currently going on. And although there are two things that are needed to be worried for India, one is the visas which was suspended by the Trump, and next one is the generalized system of preferences. So I think the generalized system of preferences, approximately about 5 billion was the total products that were sent by India to there. So that is a pretty small amount as compared to approximately 5% of the total amount, as compared to the total business that we had with USA. With USA, we had a total business of I think $200 billion. And generally it is favored in the side of India and is the major exporter, and we are less importer from USA. So I hope this is clear. The next one is the imparting direction to the science in India. So this article can be summarized into 5 points: publication, patents, and the science policies objectivity. So these are the 4 articles. I will tell you in the simplest manner in which this particular article should be understood. First of all, he talked about publication and the patents. He said that in publication, when we talk about China, USA, and India, whatever the total number of publication that we have in absolute numbers, twice is the publications in USA and thrice is the publication in China. The year-on-year growth is maximum in India, that is from the previous year to the new year. We have a large year-on-year growth. That means our students are getting more into higher education and more into the research activities. but the impact factor is very less. Our impact factor is just about in 1% of the total researches that are being done outside. So that means most of the researches do not have an impact factor and they are just doing for the sake of doing it. With respect to the patent that is available with the WIPO, that is the World Intellectual Property Organization, they have said that in the case of patent, the maximum patent that are registered by any country in a particular year, in the case of China, they are 58,000 in a year. In the case of USA, they are 57,000 in a year. When we compare it with India, there are only 2,053 patent application. Although the government have come up with the IPR policy in 2016, but it has been not been highly successful in basically providing a providing a vibrant, innovative, and balanced intellectual property right. Now, with respect to the science policy that is coming into the fifth science draft in 2020, there were four other policies that have come before that. If you see the Nehruvian era in 1958, Nehruvian era have established basically world-class institutional laboratories in India. So when the first science policy came in 1958, Mr. Nehru have said that we need a scientific enterprise and we need to develop scientific temper among the people. So therefore, he established research lab and institutes, and IITs and different form of CSR institutes are the result of it. Now, the second science policy came in 1980. That provided at the particular time as Mrs. Indira Gandhi was there. She asked for self-reliance in the technology in the society for all. The first science policy in 2003 said investment in the research and development in the private sector. This was during the Manmohan time, and they talked about the scientific and the engineering research board that will basically provide the private investment into the government sector. The fourth science policy came in 2013 that provide for innovation in science and make India as a big supergiant in the technology with a ranking in the top 5 of the most technological developed nation. We are still not in the top 5. The next one is the Large Hadron Collider that is situated or will be going to situated at Hingoli in Maharashtra. That is the one bigger achievement of the India Science Policy 2013. Now the fifth science policy draft is around the corner. There are 3 or 5 major objectives that are started. The first major objective that the research will be promoted in India. Then there is full-time equivalent research will be conducted. There are a lot of research that are being conducted, but they are currently extended from the foreign countries to the Indian subcontinent. They will be replaced with a full-time domestic research from India. They will be cross-domestic expenditure on research and development. Right now, when we talk about the total expenditure in India, it is about 0.6% of the GDP. As we see the case of Israel and USA. In the case of Israel, it is maximum in the world, that is about 4% of the total GDP, and in the case of USA, that is 2% of the GDP. We want to become in the top 3 scientific power in the next decade, and one nation, one subscription with respect to the various journal and the books that are available. That is the new government policy right now. And there will be decentralized evidence-informed bottom and result-driven approach that will be providing way forward to the private sector and also the government sector. Okay. And then he further suggests that science diplomacy can be used. We can become the pharma of the world as we have already, and we can use that particular leverage to also have negotiations at the world. So I hope this is clear. Further moving on. The next one is Karnataka to move Supreme Court against Tamil Nadu project. So this is River Kaveri, on which Tamil Nadu is making a project on the catchment river of Kaveri. And please understand, the Kaveri river came from Karnataka and then it goes to Tamil Nadu and then it flows out of Tamil Nadu. But the Kaveri river is basically a major dispute between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu because the catchment water that is currently used has been accused, or the accusation has been laid by both states on each other, that they are not able to ripe away or ripe the major sources that of the water that is available in the particular river. Now, what Tamil Nadu is doing, Tamil Nadu is basically catching a tributary on which they are basically linking that particular tributary to another river in Karnataka, another river in Tamil Nadu. So Karnataka is accusing that the total water that should be coming in Kaveri has been reduced by the efforts of by the projects of Tamil Nadu. So that's why they ask that we will take you to the Supreme Court if you do not follow the word that is given by the water tribunal. Okay. स्टेट वाटर ट्रिब्यूनल, तो इस बात को ध्यान रखिएगा. Next one is the 23.7 lakh register for free digital library service. Now there are approximately 10.9 lakh ebooks and 5.94 lakh videos that are being basically made available on this particular, and this program has been started in Karnataka. In Karnataka, there has been a program which provided the connectivity among all the libraries, and all the data that could be made available online has been made available online by different libraries. Now this is a program that could also be started in the state of HP. We have a major issue with respect to connectivity, so internet could play a major role in all forms, and the books that are only available in the state of HP in the Himachal Pradesh University could be made available to every nook and corner of the state through digital connectivity. So please remember this. The next one is the US welcome India-Pak ceasefire agreement. So they have said this is better step for the peace and cooperation in the South Asia. They have condemned all the incursion and infiltration that happen on any kind, any type. Terrorism has been commended and asked Pakistan and India to move on a forward path and bring in peace with respect to the various conflicts that have happened over the years. ठीक है, तो इस बात को ध्यान रखिए. Okay, further moving on. The next is PSU banks insurers important. This is said by PM Modi. He said that private sector is important for making the capital, and all the other banks and insurers are also important. We need to have a sound financial system. That does not in any way mean that we will risk the depositor and the investors. Both should survive and both should thrive. Now, non-transparent credit cultures have harmed the nation, and we will do away with this. Transparent credit culture will be upheld and will be provided a better space to basically thrive and work for the people. Okay. The next is related to India cannot abandon us. This is said by Sri Lanka. Now, why they are saying it? Because there is a particular resolution that has been moved against in United Nations Human Rights Council against Sri Lanka, in which the Sri Lankan authorities has been accused of committing war crimes by elimination of some of the Tamilians' life, in which certain people that belong to the Tamil origination, that they are Sri Lankan people, they belong to Tamil origins. So they have been killed by Sri Lanka in the civil war that continued till 1990, and the after effects were felt till 2009. Sri Lanka, the foreign minister have said that when we talk about world as a family, India is an immediate family, and we are pretty sure that they will not stab us back. And we are also seeking cooperation from India, Nepal, Pakistan, Bhutan. They are still having solidarity with them. They will understand the condition of Sri Lanka, and we hope that they will vote toward dismissing the resolution that is moved in the United Nations Human Rights Council against Sri Lanka. Probably India will do the same. So, because we do not want angry Sri Lanka, because already a non-angry Sri Lanka is harmful to us. So, if it is angry Sri Lanka, it will be more harmful to us. So, probably we will go vote on the Sri Lankan line. Okay, further moving on. India is out of recession. This is shown by the GDP. Please understand, 13th Amendment is one of the better things that you should know about Sri Lanka. Okay, 13th Amendment is one of the major amendment that has been moved in the Constitution of Sri Lanka. And what is happening in the 13th Amendment, you should know. The next one is the economy out of recession. So this is GDP that grows 0.4% in the fiscal year 21. So we are going on a V-shaped recovery again made by the Foreign Secretary. The next one is the current inflation target band apt for next 5 years. This is set by RBI report. So after 5 years, there is an MPC committee that again set up the inflation targets that are needed to be contained. So the RBI report that have come out, they have said that 4% plus minus 2% is the inflation targeting we should also be going on for the next 5 years. That is from 2021 to 2026. And I think that would be good for the working of the economy. And the fit range should be 3.8% to 4.3%. So this is what they are targeting. And the range would be the same for the next 5 years also. So I think that is it for today.